Yeah, that's me. Hi, everybody. Want to say right away thank you that you guys on the 7 p.m. on Friday, you've chosen to be here, not in some other places in this city. I appreciate that. And also want to say that I'm not just a public figure. I almost never speak, so I'm sorry for possible lapses in my presentation. A couple of words about myself. I've been in T-Bank for 12 years, and I oversee a mobile bank and BI of physical people, you know, everything up front, a yellow app in your pocket or a different color if you're having iOS right now. This is my zone of responsibility. My hobby, I write music and I also do the free diving. Now, my content today about the open source as is in T, now it's called T Technologies. It's a bank and insurance and investments and you name it. How this has been progressing and maybe depending on what stage of evolution we are, maybe you would be able to get some things and some dialogues and try to apply it in your company. A couple of advice, again, if you want to apply it in your company, this is going to save you lots of energy and time. Okay, here we go, and yeah, in many companies, where people told me how their IT works, they've told me that, you know, this is the diagram, I guess. By default, access to source codes has only the development team. So in the office next to me, there could be a guy, my colleague, who's been working on the next project about what he does. He may describe to me verbally or show on the monitor, but I cannot see it in the code. By default, the code is closed. It's not an open source. And on the way to open source and IT culture, I want to mention inner source, the state in which, you know, by definition, these kind of sources are open to everybody. Of course, there are some exceptions from the rule, you know, processing, security, kind of critical system working with personal data. Sure, they should not be provided access for because it's a critical infrastructure. But if we're speaking about the front end and some kind of applied services, I don't know. Yeah, as a matter of fact, this lack of access don't be actually a barrier for cool things we all can do. And our team has experienced through several iterations of negotiation with the information security guys that 90% of the source code is available to all the IT guys, whoever is doing processing. They can see how the IPI of physical persons or mobile bank are working, ask questions, whatever you want, and he will not be punished. And I say, like, IT as a Lego, you know, like a Lego cubes. I'm going to show you the on a different slide. Again, you accelerate supplies. You can understand what the other teams are doing, give suggestions instead of trying to reinvent the wheel. IT as Lego, basically the same, but not from the side of business, but IT. Self-service. Sometimes certain things you do not need to order, you set the goals and plan, you simply take it and okay, there are rules of contribution. You follow them. There could be many fences, but when you've passed that, the responsibility of the code is given to the respective team of the project. And this kind of self-service is one of the big advantages of the open source. And high engineering culture, it's a shame factor. When everything is open, that would be great to just, you know, behave. And a couple of advice, I guess, sorry, is too much text on the slide. If you'll find it interesting, you can later on to see it in the record of it and read it. Now, barriers. The main barrier is information security. Indeed, for quite a long time, people were saying, hey, we're going to be hacked, we're going to be broken into and stuff like that. But what we did, we worked and we did lots of audits against any leaks. Yeah, I'm going to share about open source. And specifically, in our case, if you look at the calendar, the oldest project was UI kit for Angular. And it's IP SDK made for a mobile bank, and we thought, like, why did we spend all this? Why did you upload it as a library? It's needed only for the mobile bank. Yes, but 3 years later, we needed it for the operator of T-Mobile, investments and business. And those folks said, hey, so awesome, for several years ago, you thought that we may need it in the future. And if you do it systemically, if, I'm sorry for the small print, it's just our window shop, window case. All you can do, libraries, platforms, services, kind of a rich collection of Lego cubes, so to say, which have happened simply because we begin to open the source codes and open the source code. The culture involvement have changed, and this kind of window shop window that we have, it's a system analytics and a developer. They can find lots of great stuff right here, and at least the applied services and typical services, you can take those Lego cubes and you can assemble stuff in the matter of hours, not even days. This is the project card, description, support chat, simply an example, or the current, kind of footprint of the system. Done with the inner source for now. Also, it may happen that, speaking of inner source, when this is such a great product, that it becomes comparing with competition, which provide paid services. You look, you compare capabilities, and you think, oh, actually, we're even better. Maybe we look much better than others. And sometimes projects become commercialized, and why do we do this? First of all, because you have another revenue stream. In addition to internal sponsors of the project, you get external sponsors. And secondly, you have like a leveling off of what industry need, and not only what you need for you and your team. No barriers. Look, if somebody says, nobody cares about our project, yeah, most of the projects, however great and awesome they could be, they will not be needed by anybody. It's not a mass sort of like market or case. It's hard to do something by your team only or your company only, which would be better than what has been accumulated by the world. Negative P&L. Yep, negative P&L, for sure. Basically, it's like a startup. It's a startup born in IT development. And we've had this kind of startup, we still have it. VoiceKit is the name. It is basically automation of call centers and calls and reminders. Like, tomorrow, guys, you have a payment for your credit. Why should any human person do that when a robot can do this? And it's a text-to-speech and speech-to-text model. We've done it maybe 7 years ago. And we did it for ourselves, but then we evaluated it back in the day. The market solutions were comparable. We did it into service, and it turns out not that it was like a huge success, but first of all, we've realized that yes, you can do that, and secondly, it was a competitive solution, and some of the people chose us over competition. Another pride point in the story with the Splunk. Maybe you used Splunk. Can you please lift up your hand? It's a Splunk system logs, Yeah, I can see hands. Splunk, basically, I don't know how about now, but about 3 years ago when we had this problem, it was an industrial standard for log management, convenient language. You can do ports and whatever. And of course, in 2022, we won't be able to continue our license, and we begin to analyze what is available on the market, where we're not happy with that. And we have a very committee with very smart IT people that said, okay, let's do it in-house. We want something of our own. So we decided to build our product. It's called Sage. At first, it would do the same assignment, like a monitoring, log management, and inquiry language. But then it grew out into observation platform with tracing and metrics. Again, we began to meet our own in-house need, and then we realized that our requirements are on par with the market. When we met them, we realized that actually we can make money on it. That's it about commercial part for now. And open source. Open source, I want to give you a bit more. Sometimes you may have a quality product in library and project, but you do not see a potential for commercialization, and you don't mind to share it with the world. And this is how we come to the open source kind of mentality and approach. It has a lot of advantages for business, for employees, and for the global community as well. I'm not going to list it all, but briefly, our staff are only winning in terms of influence and career and freedom of participation, networking. And as for the company, at first glance, it's like never-ending expenses. People don't do this task. Why don't they do task? Or why this John or whoever worked for 4 days, on the 5th day he was doing some kind of patches in open source. You can show it if you have this kind of dialogues, like what it brings to company. Yes, it is not money here and now, but it's about efficiency, engineering culture, reliability, and kind of long-term vision for the company. These benefits you will reap, but you'll reap them in the future. But it's going to be like very, with a high multiple. Okay, barriers. I guess it's a small print again. I apologize for that. But again, these are the questions which we've seen and which we were able to solve. We will have a part about how to do open source to make it your friend and not your foe. But basically, like it says like it can be hacked. We actually wanted more eyes to see at our product and not bug bounty. We've had some bug bounty, some issues on GitHub. Again, until 2022. What if it will be stolen? Actually, it will be many, can be triggered by, hey, we've done the work, we give it away, and then somebody's making a commercial product out of it. At least in our company, it used to be like a huge policy and huge agreement, but we said patches 2.0, you can make a commercial product. If you don't harm us, we do not mind. We've had cases like that. People would take UIT for web and do the fake phishing website on top of our UI kits, and they look like ours. Yes, it's a crime. We're against that. But when somebody would take like a trading platform on top of our UI kit, you're welcome. We've had long conversations, but actually we decided to do this kind of IT charity. Some of the examples of the project is a library of utilities for web. Again, we did it for ourselves, and then we looked, hey, it looks like we have some good results, good outcomes. We decided to upload it, and people use it. People use it, and these are metrics for performance and size of the library. I haven't used it. I don't know what's the idea of the project, but we can have great results. Now, the same graph, but you only see it in different years when the project was uploaded. The first upload by programming languages and types of the projects, be it a library or scripts or whatever. The same numbers but different layers. Again, you can just notify the trend. The sooner you begin, the sooner you'll be in the period like 4 last columns, where it's going to be like a virus, like a COVID infection of sorts, which will be spreading all over. And yeah, what else? Some of the advantages, some of the benefits for business, for IT, they are obvious. Sometimes we may have some hybrid arrangement between the commercial and open source projects. Open core. Most of us have been using these kind of products. Like when the basic part is open, you can use it unlimited, but as for support expanded functions, they are paid. Open core model. And this is a business model. It is not a charity. Although the basic parts, we give away for free, and we give away a lot. But it looks like it's some kind of a hybrid, which has a commercial and also open source part. Yeah, it is helping community. I don't know, when students making some kind of startups, they're using the base part, and then they go to big companies that use this product, but they use it as a part of enterprise license. Again, several tags of what I'm using myself, be it at home or be it at work. These are all the projects based on the open core. Yeah, they've been for free, All of them have the commercial support or expanded functionality. This is called open core. The second case is open source SDK. It looks like it's an open source, the source is open, but this is not exactly a pure 100% open source. What can you do with that? You can understand how it works in some patches, but basically, if you don't have a service, without a service on top of this SDK, you can not do much. I can give you some examples where people understand why. In any case, the open source, you can understand how it works, you can contact, you can connect with others because there is a platform, and some other advantages of the open source. They do work. And Stripe and open banking or our IPs. So SDK is like a format of access to API. If you do not like it, because it is open source, you can change it. Or you can even contest it and make your own. We've had examples like that. We had SDK for acquiring, for the accepting payments in mobile application. I think it was like for Avito platform. Maybe it was Avito platform. So SDK, receiving payments for services, it's been written on the iOS and Android, and basically it was a native tool. If your application on Flutter, I don't know if you guys into mobile development, Flutter basically is like a separate engine which has access to native, but it's not very convenient, and it recommends to make your own interface. I mean, to long story short, it's basically like a bridge. You need a bridge to use native functions. And the company MedBrains, contractors, they did some kind of mobile application with somebody, and they wanted to make it on Flutter, but to save and to make it for Android and iOS without big requirements for output and design. This is what they've done. They've taken our open source SDK, they've learned how it works, and imported this into Flutter. They're happy, yes. They solved the challenge because it is open. They did not do, kind of to raise it up in their non-native environment. They've done PR and they've done charity. We're happy. Basically, it's free. We got support for this Flutter. And the customer received their mobile application. Everybody's happy. So this is the form of the open source, but, it could be very, very useful. And this is my diagram. It all begins on the left when you don't have anything. And this is evolving into this type of formats or forms. And by the way, it looks differently in our case. I think everything was closed, and then there was some kind of open source, and then we began to build up on top of that. And now, had we known this experience, we would have done it differently. Now, advice, which work in our case. There could be a lot of text, and if you like it, you can read the presentation on your own, but we have such institutions as professional leaders or occupational leaders. These are high-energy people who are cool in their technologies and their tech stacks. They love what we do because they're emotionally involved, and they have communities because they have their own teams, maybe. And who are these people? Just a little of background history. For a long time in the IT was a service module. A lot of businesses are coming, and just a single window to get applications, and something is done, and you get your answer. In 2020, we decided to move away. Instead of a huge IT kind of service with 1,000 people, we decided to make a lot of small ones. Business IT was not. The network could not say that, hey, business did not give me anything. Business is not just somebody in the next office. You are the business. You are responsible for your part. So in 3 years, we've covered this path, but we, in anonymous companies of the green and red color, this is non-existent when I wrote this presentation. And this is painful. I don't know how people live with that. What's the problem? So when you verticalize, you build your verticals, you have your CTO and CPO and services and you name it. And it may be a joint brand. There could be some kind of, you don't know the next door guy who is sitting in your office but on a different project. So this is what we've witnessed. It was quite painful, and two countermeasures that we've made out of that, and they were implemented like a core tag. It's a basis. Everything you can use was again modularized, built into modules and covered by tests and so on, and it became the public good. And inner source kind of took off at the same time. And second is occupational leaders. Leaders in the SCADA developers, Android developers, and QA full stack. So the most energetic and the most dedicated people who are committed and they gather together for their respective fields. They have some hangouts as leader professionals, and they have like some kind of joint agenda. And also within their occupation, they're most energetic, the coolest people who have influence and they have impact within the company. And this is like an institution that we got in our bank. This is what we do. It's like a top level. For example, the competence matrix. People do one single line. You can say that your colleague of the 15th or 16th grade, or when they do the upgrade, they do not argue with this line because it's all the same everywhere, and it works. So, kind of meta challenges for our profession. And I want to say that this is super important. The core tech, the occupational leaders and these kind of vertical leaders, we're like in horizontal ties. I don't know how the other banks are doing, but in our bank, it was a big problem, and this is how we dealt with it. Maybe it'll be beneficial for some of you. You'll like it. So we do not repeat the same mistakes over and over again. And these occupational leaders, it's a role, it's not a job title. It was an experiment. I think lasted for about half a year. It was something like a job title. But we've noticed that people who are beginning to do this is opposite to the production. They begin to degrade. They, like if you leave them alone as is, leader of QA mobile, for instance, then a year later, he or she will not be a leader. Yes, they will be doing this job, but they will not be experts in their profession. So there was a huge trade-off, and this role enables you to give like internal medals, internal benefits, but it's not a job. This is not the people who have been assigned with this, kind of tasked with this. They always do the same work over and over. They have some practice, like a practical doctors. They learn a lot, they know a lot, but also they are doing operations themselves. 4 criteria of how we select those internal leaders. We do not show much of the story, but when we can see high demand. In our case, it was a mobile and web. They were looking for these kind of leaders, and very, very quickly, it was just spreading all over the company. And this kind of, hey, we have this team of 10 people, but want our own occupation, want to promote our own interests, like a trade union, but there is no strikes in this trade union. People are positive. People do not want to fight with one another or with their employer. So in open source, leaders of these professions, they define what's going to happen. And after you've been in this kind of infusion stage, open source, every day people saying, hey, I want to upload this or I want to upload that. And when you have a certain critical mass, so to speak, like, okay, come on, should I just upload the button or the script, which is patch in NGX? Sorry about that, but it used to be cool, but it's not enough for us anymore. So we do have some real cases when a project may say to us they're trying to upload stuff, and it looks like it's good, following all the criteria. But then we do the double check, like, this is your project, okay, your ego will be satisfied and your HR brand will be lifted, but are you going to provide some value into the world if dozens of other projects they're doing the same thing? Sorry, but like, we came to a stage where sometimes we'll say no. We say, sorry, bro, but it does not benefit the world, it does not benefit our community. And then defining a process, searching for products, people come to us and sometimes they do not have this habit, some of them, to think about open source. And then leaders of professions is helping. Recommendation, help, communication with community, it's all getting better. And this is where they are on the diagram. Basically around open source when we do the uploads and stuff. Available materials. People are the most important part in component. But also I wanted to say some available materials just describe the rules of the game. And it sounds trivial, but in 50% of cases people are willing to play by the rules. They do not know the rules, or they are told, hey, we have here, it's a simplified list of what we are speaking when people want to share some other good stuff. Communication. Just a chat where we have the news.
DevRel,
it's in small caps, but there's a lot of criteria how the employer's brand influences the old one and the new one. There's a lot of criteria, but open source works for many of them. This is a second slide, which can be shown to product technical specialists, technical directors, and high-level employees who say that no, don't do outsource. Nobody needs it. And you can ask them a question. Would you like to improve your HR brand? Yes, we do. Would you like to hit these pinpoints? Yes. This is open source. I think this is going to work. What do? We do all of this together. That's why I'm not going to elaborate too much on it. And slide number 3 that we can show on the topic that, okay, don't do it right now, make an objective or something like that. It's not going to be timely, and this is okay. Absolutely okay. Where can we take it from? Well, I had the following thoughts. That objectively we can find people who are charged for that, and we can work specifically on changing the culture. Well, if this is very basic, but it works. Yes, this is just a hammer, but it hammers the nails into the wall. I had a fun example. Long time ago, I have faced a bug in Wikipedia for iOS. You can check if you have iOS, and if you have Wikipedia application, I faced the situation that when you look at PDF, the scrolling didn't work pretty good, and the patch. I have reported the bug. I waited for 1 month. I suffered, but I just corrected 10 lines I've reported, and I became a well-known person. So people, when they face the problem, they should speak up. Well, I just basically see the problem, and right now I'm happy that it was accepted. And we can popularize things like that. What about the time for the open source? Well, in one sentence, it doesn't sound convincing. But many of us go into open source not because of something. They find a bug in a certain service. Maybe don't understand something in documentation they have added. For example, they needed something and it's not existing in the database. So it's open source is a part of material that is needed for the production of the value for the team. I don't know, if somebody will be cut for merging the kernel, as it was told, you have to explain, come on, this is part of my work, please don't. And it's not like we have these business people who don't give anything and angry people. Well, but there is some misunderstanding from this point of view, and it did help. Use open source, but once again, I show what I use, and your list is half different. But, just this understanding, oh my God, maybe 80% of what I use in my computer or my mobile phone, it's open source products. Maybe somebody have forgot it. Oh, honestly, yeah, that's true. And can you imagine? We would live in a totally different world if this wouldn't exist. A lot of engineers, talented engineers, products gave us all of this. They gave us possibility to use it. They will hear us if we'll come to them with a question, and they will accept our corrections if we would like to participate in this. And this is a wonderful thing. And basically speaking, conclusions that I would like to convey to you. Well, there could be different strategies in conflicts, avoidance or compromises, or maybe other one. You can read about cryptology, but the open source is a model of cooperation between the employees, company, and the external world where everybody wins. This is a strategy where everybody is at the advantage. So my goal is to charge you for this. I've made two examples where inside of the company there's a great benefit that was given that through the open source and inner source they received a lot of services and products and libraries which gave them, not immediately, but after 3 years, the great boost time to market and a lot of projects. And it is cross-dissemination, cross-pollination, instead of inventing wheels. This is, it's very good when you come to the colleague and add to his work. What can we begin with? When your company is thinking, or maybe in a different stage of development. So these are people. Nothing works if there won't be people who are charged for this, who have hot, burning hearts for that. The culture. Why do I speak about culture? So if you do something at the moment, and the long-term goals will lose to the short-term. And short-term, this is meta over us, which allows us to say, yes, right now we are going to sacrifice something that after a certain period of time, everything's going to be all right. And inner source, civil step. It's not necessary to open all the repositories simultaneously. You can start with fronts. It has less secrets and criticality, but you can have a goal. For example, you need security audit. Okay, let's begin with it. 2 weeks, you open one repository, but then they've told everybody about this. They created hackathon, and everybody who's not in the project, they can find 10 bugs. These are the ways to make such small steps and move them to big changes. Well, that's it. Maxim Korobov, Telegram. And thank you very much for your attention.
Во-первых, спасибо большое, Максим, потому что многие...
Well, thank you very much, Maxim, because many people forget that there are people and not only software. And first of all, you have to understand that this is a totally different sphere of activities. And do you have any questions? I see one.
Структурированно, потому что я весь доклад придумал вопросы, и я думаю, хорошо.
I was inventing questions during the whole presentation. Well, he was speaking about license, and I have to ask, and then you speak about license. Then how can you monetize? And then you will speak about how monetize, and how you work without projects. And then you tell us how to work without projects. That was wonderful. Well, the question that I wanted to ask 2 questions. Number one, first one is preparation for the uploading. in order not to feel ashamed. And very often it is seen when the company places some project into open source. This is one commit, like we decided to post it, we remove all this history so that it's better that nobody will see it. I don't know about ST technologies in these projects because this is not my sphere of responsibility, but it's interesting how it works with you. And the second question, well, how do you perceive that our developers commit into the open source signing with our company? And then whether it's okay when it's a profile open source or generally it is okay. Well, let's do it on a step-by-step basis. Honestly speaking, those projects which are posted, they begin with the first commit. And this is not what is important right now, but it shouldn't be only one commit. And our main rule, when you have posted into the open source, you should leave there. From dev platform, it's removed and you become the user from your own product. Yes, you are developing there, but it's downloaded as a binary from Nugget or other packages, not locally. And that's how you get the involvement. Then as a continuation of this, what about relative integration, safe development, and this cycle? If it lives in the GitHub, then how can you conduct your checks, how it gets into the infrastructure, not really trustworthy code? Perhaps how can we check and pull tests our checkers from us? These checkers, they work on the open source. The same that work internally, they also work with the open source and they also react the same way. Okay, good, thank you. The second question about the commit, about commits on behalf of the company into some other repositories. Okay, let's see. In the beginning, first 5 years, it was simple. Take, kill. There were some precedents by specifically detailed employees who've been reading NDA, agreement about copyright. And we have created FAQ, which is not going to fit the screen. It's a very big one. And about every letter, it has specifics. So the employee, briefly, if the copyright belongs to the employee, it doesn't matter if he did it in Silicon Valley, one commit on a work node, he stays the author, but exclusive right for usage is on the side of the company. And there were examples when employees were the main maintainers of big projects and they left the company. And there was a question, is it his or companies? And most of the companies, it's his. The most critical ones, it was the copyright was behind him, but we made a fork and then we took it inside. So the worst case that we've had is that we gave to an employee his baby because it was the only one. He was the only one. But at the same time, we kept the company on the safe grounds. Good evening. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have the following question. I don't know. Maybe I've missed it or maybe you haven't been speaking about it. How do you make a decision about which project will be the open source one? Which level this decision is made? How is it decided? And question number 2, how do you determine how much employee can spend for the open source? How much time? Well, I have a brief memory, so I will ask you to repeat the second question. Question number 1, can I roll back? Yeah. There's some kind of a checklist. It's shortened for the presentation. It's a more internal one. But the most important thing, please show it on your fingers that your product doesn't have competitors, or maybe it does have, but why your project is better. This is the most important criteria right now. Previously, we've been posting everything. We've been filling the front page, the main screen. But right now they tell us, do this one. And this is back to the question about the first commit. Sometimes you feel ashamed and then it has to be forgiven. Well, it's a question of safety, infrastructure. So briefly speaking, that's it. There's another checklist. This is just health check. Minimal bureaucracy, which to our point of view, we just mature enough. Maybe some people have twice more. Somebody has nothing. Maybe in your company, you will take something and adopt something. You don't have to buy it. Well, the license, we have selected Apache 2.0. We had a big political decision. It's not our secret. We wanted to post a project for Android libraries, which reads NFC when you attach a card to it. There are several open source projects and they don't work. So we have put two engineers who divided this in the protocol, how the NFC works, down to the letter precision, its own file system. It's a very big hemorrhage. 3 man hours spent. Then they wanted to post to open source and then said, well, nobody wants it. It works only for us. All other competitors, they don't work on Russian cards. So let's not post this. And these guys who've been working this, they said, okay, really, let's not do it. Cases like that happen, but generally, yeah, here it is. These are the rules. Question number 2, please. Yeah, question number 2 about employees. Every employee has a certain period of time for the open source project, or how does it happen? Or they just choose a team lead and things like that? Yeah. We do not check. Even some prohibited services, we don't do this monitoring. It's in the responsibility in the head of the employee, but nevertheless, the question of the performance, if something is wrong for the employee, for example, availability of common events and things, then this question will be asked of them and he can say, okay, I'm doing the open source, but that's another story. We are not controlling, we are not allotting time that, for example, okay, today you do that. No, we don't do that. But we have two flows. The first one is that people in the framework of their regular work, there was a slide here about approval. If I have to correct something physically in a Linux kernel, okay, you can do it. It's going to be much better than if you will do some crutch. When it stops your work objective, no questions asked. But when you want to share this with the world, okay, checklist, if you pass it, we are just happy. We just for you. Did I answer you? Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Great. Do you have any more questions? Just in case, I would like to remind you that for the best question, you can receive one of the best books from the Peter publishing houses about the open source and how to work with it. Okay, 2 people asked questions, and who asked the most interesting one? I thought the most interesting question was about one commit. It is so sad when open source becomes from one commit. Well, so the first question, who asked it? Yeah. Yeah. That was the winner. So please approach and get your prize. And thank you very much. It was very interesting listening to you as one of the developers. And basically that's it. It was the last presentation. So we are going to be expecting you tomorrow, May 24 in Lovelace. There's going to be a good networking. So we're going to be expecting you there. Thank you very much for your attention and great evening.